Saley who can deliver that.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Chris Scully from Drive with my guests, Bob Spitz from Drive and Mark Bagg. So today we're going to be talking about shop owner certifications, and Mark is a longtime Drive client and a master of shop management. And Bob, well, Bob's been with the company forever.
Pretty much.
So Bob, I actually wanted to start with you because you were involved in how our certification program developed, and talk a little bit about that and the history of it and what it means.
Well, it was all born out of a program that we developed back in the 90s, where we got our top shops together for what we call conventions at that time. And we wanted to acknowledge the top producers, the top performers, especially in front of their peers, like-minded shop owners, on things like increased production over the previous year, increased sales, increased profit. And that all evolved into, in the year 2000, we decided to create what was become the master program, where we'd actually certify shops on stellar performance. And what was different about our program at the time, it wasn't based strictly on training that they delivered, or they received and successfully completed, but they had to actually show the ability to take these principles and apply them in the shop, and then provide proof through KPIs and other means that they actually do have all these points in place. And the big one at that time, of course, was having an actual on-site inspection done by one of our inspectors to see that these points were in place. Because not that we didn't trust shop owners, but we wanted to see for ourselves that these points were absolutely in place. And once we could verify that their numbers were they needed to be, their profitability was needed to be, their systems were in place, their marketing, their hiring, all of these different systems were in place, well, then they would be certified as a master of shop management. And it's a heck of an honor. You know, it's not something that you take on lightly, and it was also, we developed it to give everybody a fun game to play. You know, an end result to all their hard work and their accomplishment. You know, the same thing with a master technician. When he becomes certified as a master technician, that's a point of pride. Well, it's a point of big pride for our shop owners when they achieve masters.
Great, thanks, Bob. Mark, you achieved master. What was that like for you?
It was something to be proud of, I have to say, like Bob said, because it was a lot of hard work, and for us, it took quite a while to finally get to that point. As Bob had told me, he says, "Well, it took you long enough," and so, but we finally.
Well, you didn't want to rush into it, Mark.
Right, but you know. Maybe a little off subject. A lot of it had to do with really the crew that we had, the team that we had. And as we changed that, it became easier to reach master. You still had to put everything in place. And as Bob said, you had to increase things. You had to increase your KPIs. You had to increase your reserves. So it was a lot of hard work. And, my wife and I, Lucia, were very proud when we actually heard that we were going to get the award.
Awesome, thank you. So now we actually have 5 different levels of certification that we can award to shop owners, and they go from effective shop manager to professional shop owner, master of shop management, master elite of shop management, and sustained master elite of shop management. So I want to talk about each of them and what they mean, what the requirements are briefly, kind of a very short version, and what it means to the shop to attain these levels and the changes that they can bring about. So, Bob, you want to start out with effective, and then we can.
Well, the reason we had Master of Shop Management for many years as the only level of certification. And one of the things that we realize is sometimes someone would achieve Master and feel like they were done. It was like game over. And we didn't have a new game for them to play. And some of those folks, they devolved. So we wanted to make sure that they maintained that level of excellence. And we developed first the elite level, which is kind of like getting a PhD, because one of the big differences between Master and Master Elite is all the points. And if you've ever had an inspection by Jim Saley, there's a lot of points that are brought up in one of those inspections. And the key points have got to be in place to meet Masters, but all the points have got to be covered. Everything that is found has got to be corrected for Master Elite. And then to sustain that, you have to have proof that you are keeping everything in place through the proof of KPIs and other verification for those upper levels. But then we also wanted to give a win to all those guys who are working hard who haven't achieved Master yet by creating some lower level certifications such as Effective Shop Manager and Professional Shop Owner, where it's not quite as difficult to hit, but they still require a fair amount of work to get done. And it's also a nice point of achievement on your way to Masters, because we like to measure always progress and letting people see that progress, and obviously to let them get the accolades from their peers and the like-minded shop owners at the expo.
Absolutely. And so for effective, some of the things that we look for are that the shop owner is getting some training, they're learning management skills and putting them to use in their shop. So that also includes managing their shop by KPIs and doing a weekly plan to improve those KPIs, and that the shop is profitable and the shop owner is able to see a certain level of profit from their shop. I think we look for about, was it like 10%?
I think it's 10%, yeah.
At that level.
10 points.
And that they're building up some reserves so that the shop isn't always operating at risk financially, which is a common situation in small business throughout the country. So those are some of the important qualifications for effective shop owner. And the coaches coach the clients to get those qualifications met. And that's really the first milestone toward Master that we recognize as with an award.
Yeah. Chris, I think one of the important points of especially those first ones, Effective Shop Manager, is one, so many of our guys started out as technicians and then they opened up their own shop and they maintained that viewpoint or that skill set and tried to apply it to managing their shop. So giving them this goal to go after really has to shift their viewpoint about who they are. You cannot achieve these as a technician running a shop. You have to achieve these as a business owner running a business.
Right.
Mark, would you agree with that assessment?
Absolutely. And one of the things that Drive does is it gets us out of that position where we're able to actually run the business. And, I was a service advisor for a long time, but it left no time to actually run the business. And, it just made for really long days. And that's one of the key things that Drive does is teaches us to become executives and not just an employee of your own business.
Right.
Yeah, that's that's a really important point about all of these certification levels, is that each one gets you closer and closer to being in a position where you're running your business and your business is not running you. And to the degree that at the higher levels of certification, you start to have certain freedoms that you probably never imagined until you got to that point. Mark, we were talking right before we came on. You just got back from vacation, and
Mhm.
your wife is also out of town.
She's in Brazil. Yes, she and I used to do the 10 to 14-hour days all the time, could never take any time off. Now she's in Brazil at least 3 months a year, and I easily take cumulatively 2 months a year off, easily.
That's
You
great.
know, I'm at the office 4 to 5 hours a day, and probably 4 days a week, roughly.
Yeah, well, you know, you get to the point where you as an owner, you've just got to let go. If you've got competent people under you, they want you to let go. They don't want you to mess with them, right?
Yeah,
It's like, hey,
I'd,
boss, don't you have something to do?
I'd have to say that was one of the harder things for me to do, was to change the way I thought, because even once I should have had the freedom, like Bob, you said, it took me long enough. The problem was I was still out there kind of micromanaging. If I felt, oh, production wasn't producing the way it should, I'd be out there, we got to do it this way, you got to do it this way. And finally I got to the point, no, you just got to let them do it and let
Yep.
them make their own mistakes. And now I'm at the point where I could never go back to just like micromanaging. I don't even want to be involved. Let them do it. I'll help coach, but that's it.
Yeah, that's a big learning experience, and it's a tough one to let go, because most of the shops start out very small, where the owner is doing everything, and he has it in his mind, or she has it in her mind, that it's got to be done my way or the highway, only to discover that you have some very talented people under you. And sometimes you learn from them, go, holy cow, I didn't think that that was possible. Maybe
They
I
can
should leave
actually
them
do it better than
alone.
me.
Right. A little bit of a hard pill to swallow, but you got to swallow it and let them get on with it.
Absolutely. Now, let's talk a little bit about professional shop owner. We went over some of the requirements for effective, and what we look for at the professional level is a higher degree of skill in some of those same areas that we just talked about for effective, but also that you're starting to build a team and that you're more on top of your numbers and your finances are in better shape because you've had more time to build reserves and you've had more time to make your operation more efficient. So we're looking for a higher amount of profitability. At that level, we're looking at the shop owner doing about 12.5% net profit, as well as having recruitment actions in place and a bonus system in place and things like that. And that's the professional shop owner level. And again, it's a stepping stone on the way to masters.
Right.
And then we get to master. Mark, I have a question for you. When you finally got to the point where you felt you'd made it, what were some of the things that you had to look at, fine tune, to get that certification? I know what we do at our end, but I just want to get the shop owner's perspective as far as that goes.
Well, one of the keys is consistently staying over your break-even point, because if you don't, we as owners, in theory, get paid last. And if you're not going over the break-even, well, guess who's not getting paid?
Right.
Absolutely.
That and building up the reserves consistently, so if there is an issue, you can deal with it. Had to fine tune a lot of, and I'm still doing it actually, is fine tuning a lot of the policy and procedures, things of that nature, because things are constantly changing. as we move, obviously everybody went from paper to paperless and from paper inspections to digital inspections. So those are things you have to continually fine tune. If you don't, you'll find yourself kind of behind the times.
That's right. It's
Absolutely.
so easy to get behind the times right now.
Yes.
It is. And as Bob was saying, it's a good idea with like the Master Elite, because yes, you can achieve becoming a master, but if you don't continue, you can lose that very quickly and easily, if you don't continue to keep things fine-tuned.
There is no such thing as a perfect shop. Just
No,
the
there's
ability to
not.
confront and handle situations and move forward.
Right.
It's like I said, it's about money. It's really easy to make money, but the key is, can you actually hang on to that money?
Right. Yeah.
Says so true. So true. And how did, Mark, for you, how did building your team come into play
Can't
in
hear you,
achieving?
Chris.
Oh, really?
Now I
Hang on a
can hear
second.
you.
Okay, good.
I've got you.
All right, good. How did building your team come into play in achieving master?
That was the biggest obstacle I had in to becoming a master, is that I had a team that really gave a lot of pushback, and that not so much to me, but say to my service advisor. I'd have them, mostly the production, pushing back on the service advisor. It was very difficult for them to get things done. And they were really working at cross interests to the business itself. They weren't totally buying into, what it was, our culture, our team culture was. So it really ended up boiling down to, we actually, over a period of time, we actually ended up replacing basically everybody. And what I learned from Drive is really how to hire the right type of person, how to look for the right type of person. Because you could have a great team, but all you need is one person in there that is working against you, and you may never know they're working against you, and you'll never get it going.
Right.
It's just too difficult. So learning how to hire the right people and get them in, and then actually get them trained up using policy and procedure, and now we refer to it as your playbook. That's the real key in getting buy-in from everybody.
Yeah, I think that's, for a lot of people in our industry, it's one of the hardest things to do, really, is to put those things in writing, to get them out of your head, and to organize all of that. And I know that at each one of these levels, we're pushing shop owners out of their comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
At each level, we're pushing them a little further out of their comfort zone, but that's the road to freedom, is getting out of that comfort zone, right? And putting these things in writing, and having a written plan that they can go back to and keep them on track, because it gets so chaotic during the day. And if you don't have that in writing, it's easy to get off track and down some rabbit hole that you didn't want to go down.
Yeah, right.
If it's not in writing, then you constantly have to give orders, basically.
Yeah.
If it's in writing, you can at least refer them back to it. And it actually helps reduce pushback if you have stuff in writing, because then you can refer. Well, they'll say I never heard of that, or you didn't tell me to do it that way. Says, well, you signed off on your training right here, and this is what it is. Why don't we revisit that and go over it again?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's one of the biggest hurdles that any small business has to overcome, is the tendency to of the business owner to have everything in their head, and they kind of do things automatically and don't think about it until they have to get somebody else to do it.
Right.
And that's where that barrier shows its head, right there. And it's a critical point in achieving masters, and especially Master Elite, is you've got to get that stuff in place and have a training plan and training program in place for your crew, so that you have a system in place for keeping it in order people change, but you still have a way of training your employees.
Yeah. And as the old saying goes, the owner learns and puts systems in place, and then the systems run the shop, not
Exactly.
the owner.
Absolutely.
And would
Yeah.
you say, Bob, that in a nutshell, that's what getting to Master Elite is all about?
It's getting those systems in place. That's right. And getting everybody trained on those systems. That it's just automatic. You know, I came from a dealership environment, and I was very surprised when I met Mike and started working more with independents, how many guys had worked in dealerships but had never observed the systems that were in place in the dealership that made those things run.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then how to break that down. Because, you know, Chris, you hit a good point there. An owner, it's just all one big thing to them. It's just he knows what to do and how to do it. But he doesn't take the time to break it all down into the steps necessary to get there. And Mike used to, you know, joke about that. He goes, you know, there's 10 things to know about doing this, and I'm going to tell you number 1, 4, and 6.
Right.
And then get mad at you when you don't do it right.
No, that's such a common occurrence. I mean, I've mentioned before that I coached in other industries before I came to Drive, and I can tell you that phenomenon that you just described is in every industry. The business owner starts to train a new employee, and they tell them certain parts of what they're supposed to do. They don't think about all the other parts, and then they get frustrated because the guy's not able to do it right.
Well, it was just so obvious, Chris. How could you not see it?
Exactly.
It's just common sense, right?
That's right.
Yeah. And then there's the, how many times do I have to tell these people this?
That's right.
And then of course the next question should be to that business owner, well, did you write it down?
Yeah. No. Why should I have to do that?
Exactly. So it, you know, for all of everybody out in the audience, the reason we have these certifications is because they actually represent milestones on the road to getting your shop in a condition where, as Bob said, the systems actually run the business, and you have the freedom to do what it is you want to do. As in, you know, Mark said, his wife spends 3 months in Brazil. He easily takes 2 months a year off, and their shop still runs without them, whether when they're gone, and it's not something he has to be directly involved in. He doesn't want to be directly involved in micromanaging. And Mark, I think that's an amazing thing when you get to that point. And congratulations. That's amazing to me that whenever I hear a shop owner that says they don't want to be involved in managing things, I go, yes.
Oh,
awesome.
Yeah, I could never go back now. It's like, no way.
Yeah. I don't know one shop, or maybe one that I can think of, who once they've replaced themselves on the front counter, ever want to go back to the front counter.
Yeah.
It's just, you just can't run a business worrying about Sally Jones' car at 5 o'clock.
Right.
You just can't. You
Exactly.
know, it's too neurotic. It's all right now. Right.
Exactly.
And the more you hand off of all those little things that you do, the more you can actually concentrate on the business itself, the things that we really should be doing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Because, you know, one of the things, and just give a little teaser, there's going to be a new workshop release at this expo, but it has to do with crisis. And the wrong time to figure out whether or not you're set up to handle a crisis is when you're in the middle of it.
Yeah, we all learned that the hard way in the last few years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I came to work and had nobody here.
Yeah. So, you know, how to prepare that business and how to keep it safe. And that's the job of the owner. And the other thing, the mistake that I've seen made in the past, Chris, is we've had folks achieve master and think that, well, I'm done. I can take my attention off the business. Oh, is that a misconception?
Right.
Yeah.
As long as you own that business, you've got to keep your attention on that business.
Exactly.
Especially the area of finance, marketing, image, all of those things. So that's why we like the sustained master concept.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's what the sustained master lead is all about. It's keeping those things in place and keeping a high standard of production and operation throughout your business.
Yeah.
Now, for all of you out there who want to achieve a level of operation where you can pursue whatever your other interests might be, or not be in the shop to spend time with your family, or whatever those goals might be, these certifications, each one is a milestone toward hitting that goal. And that's the thing to keep in mind when you have your shop, when you yourself are well enough trained as an executive, as a manager, as a shop owner, then you can put your shop in a condition where those things are possible. And that's really ultimately what these certifications are about.
That's right.
All right, we're coming up on our time, and I want to thank Mark for joining us. Bob, as always, it's great to have you on.
Pleasure.
And next week we have Tyler Robertson, CEO of Diesel Laptops. He'll be discussing the upcoming virtual Diesel Expo. So tune in for that, especially if you're a truck shop. And everybody have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah. Great seeing you, Mark. Say hi, Lucia.
Yeah. Thank you. Good to see you, Bob. Thanks, Chris.
Okay.
Appreciate you hosting it. Thanks for inviting me.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye now.